Hi, welcome back. One of my current ongoing projects is to build a steady rest, fixed steady rest for the lathe, and what I'm working on at the moment is casting some brass fingers for it. Now, if you saw my previous video about casting, one before last, it didn't go terribly well, so I cheekily asked this guy, SWDweeb, for help. Link to his channel up there, and I was surprised by the just sheer amount of help and support that he gave me, and I went through two iterations to get this, two further iterations from the previous video, so this is the third attempt, third time lucky I suppose. It isn't 100% there, but it's going to be good enough, as you'll see. Right, this is it's my new furnace. I really like this compared to the old coal one. You can just turn it on and you've got molten brass in 15 minutes. Easy as that. Much more pleasant experience to use. I'm putting my crucible on a metal tray this time rather than directly on the concrete. You can see what happens if you do that in the previous casting video. Now taking it over to the flask, and my pouring position, crucible position, technique, etc. all need some work, as you can see. Oh, in fact, and making the top of the mould a sensible shape so that it doesn't all run downhill. However, despite all of that, this mostly turned out pretty good, as we'll see in just a moment. I did put some water on that, put the fire out. Also helps to rehydrate the sand. So this is digging it out, and I'm very excited at the moment because it's looking good, and as I pull it up it feels good. I can feel that there's metal down there, and there is, and it looks pretty alright. Everything's filled, there's no obvious voids, and there we are. So you can see that there's big cracks at the base of the feeders which are sitting on top of the fingers. Another view there, you can see they go quite deep, and cracks go sort of far in. Obviously the flash around where the two flasks meet isn't ideal, but minor issue compared to those cracks. I milled a slot in the finger to see how deep it went, and sure enough it went very deep. And I sent these pictures off to SWDweeb and asked him what to do about it, and he came back with some high quality graphics like this, and basically pointed out that when you've got a sharp interface between the feeder and the part, you get a hot spot because you've got basically two faces heating some sand in a corner, whereas all the rest of the faces have only got one, or the rest of the bits of the sand have only got one face heating it. So if you then radius that interface between the two, the temperature gradient is softer, and hopefully that should prevent the cracking. And this was the design for the feeder. The radiusing has to be done manually, sort of once you separate the two halves. This is my new flask which I made up. Hopefully this one won't catch fire. If it does, I'm doing something very wrong. And these are the new feeder parts which are 3D printed out. Placing those on fairly randomly, but mainly so I can get enough room to get a finger in between the two to press the sand down. I did actually find that I could have done with pressing it down a bit harder because it was very soft around the bases of those, but it actually didn't end up causing a big problem. So pouring again, and we've got a very similar problem. This time the brass goes backwards onto the patio, which I don't notice until a little way into the pour, and annoyingly it's going more onto the patio than it is into the pat. Unfortunately I've melted a lot of brass, and there we go. So poured, feeders are filled, and you can see them shrinking down into the fingers, and here they are, and you can see that the outer two have got very slight cracks at the interface, so the radius probably wasn't good enough, but that's got to be an experience thing. And the centre of the feeders has got a nice hole, which means that the metal in those feeders has continued to feed the part rather than the part feeding the feeder. So basically what you want is for these feeders to be the last thing to freeze, so making the size larger than the ones that I had on the previous casting has meant that you've got a reservoir of molten metal which can be drawn down into the part as it freezes and shrinks down. So there we are. 2 more. That's the one that I've machined. Tiny blemish in the surface there, it's hard to catch in the light, but 2 more to machine up. But there we are. I've got some fingers now to do the other part of the steady rest. I hope you learned something from that. I hope I explained it reasonably well. Perry's done a video basically on the same subject. It's always good to get somebody else's way of explaining something. So if you take a look at that video, and thanks for watching.